Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Whitfield Report. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, as always, coming at you from South Florida. What up, savages? It's Savage Sam here for the Thursday edition of the podcast, as I just said. And, I'm sorry this episode is a bit later than usual, but what can I say? I had a busy day out in the real world, and I didn't get to record at the proper time today that I usually would have liked to, but here we are in podcast land, and I'm here for you guys for the next 45 minutes, an hour, or however long, this podcast goes for. And also, I think I finally have my microphone stand adjusted properly to where I want it. It's now more at my, mouth level to where you guys can hear me. So hopefully it sounds good. The levels are looking better than they were, last week, at least, before post-production, so that's good. Anyway, contact info as usual. If you would like to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you can do so at SamW_NDC, hashtag Whitfield Report, also on Twitter at Whitfield Report for the show, and hashtag Sam's Savages as well. And you can follow me on Minds and Gab at Sam Whitfield. Not that I'm on either one of those platforms very much. I'm on Minds a little bit more. Gab, I tend to stay away from that. And I might actually close my account down there altogether just because I never use it. So what's the point now? But anyway, also facebook.com/Whitfield Report. And as always, the SamWhitfield.com is where you can find my web site address with links to the subreddit, the donation pages, of course the blog can be right over there, and all sorts of good stuff over there. And finally, we're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, I'm there. And if you would like to support the show, you can either donate at anchor.fm/Whitfield Report, or patreon.com/Whitfield Report, and streamlabs.com/Whitfield Report for one-time donations. And that'll do it for info. So anyway, what's going on, folks? So I usually stay away from politics on the Thursday show, but obviously there was a lot of shit that went down politically this week. Lots of stuff that happened in the news, and I was going to maybe save this for Saturday, but then show plans actually kind of changed, and I'll explain why here towards the end of the show. So I'm going to do some political crap today, instead of on Saturday's show like I usually do. So first of all, this kid that went to the UN and made a big fuss, Greta, this 16-year-old kid, I can't remember her last name, but goes up there, makes a big speech about climate change, how it's, impacting us and how our leaders have failed us, and, yada, yada, yada. Her big line was, how dare the politician, how dare you refuse to act on global warming. You know, we're in an apocalypse. You know, everyone's dying, and we've got a very short amount of time to fix it. All the you know, global warming fear mongering you know, talking points are, I guess it's, you know, climate change now. But regardless, you know, the people on the left, they think that, you know, she's a savior of kinds, and everyone on the left is applauding her, and you know, all of that. A lot of people on the right, not everyone, but like a fair amount of you know, people on Twitter on the right are, you know, saying that she's foolish, and that you know, how dare she lecture us on global warming. You know, I've seen some rather nasty comments too that I'd rather you know, not repeat. And you know, here's the thing. I'm kind of two minds on this kid, you know, or whatever you want to call her. You know, for one, I agree with a lot of conservatives that she shouldn't be, you know, talking about like global warming. I don't think an activist position is really where she should, you know, be right now. And you know, I'll get to that in a sec. Ultimately, I feel bad for her more than anything else, though, because it seems to me that, you know, like somewhere along the line she was handled, and, you know, someone, it seems, you know, told her that, you know, if she wanted to help, you know, environmental concerns, that she could, you know, go ahead and do this. And, you know, so it definitely seems like she was, you know, somewhat scripted or somewhat handled. You know, this whole trend of, you know, 16-year-olds, you know, and like teenagers telling us what to do on, you know, on policy, it does get irksome. I understand that. Now, by the same token, I can, you know, I can already hear my detractors saying, well, Sam, you've been podcasting since you were, you know, 14 years old, and, you know, aren't you a little hypocrite to criticize her for, you know, commenting and, you know, doing all of that? You're being a hypocrite. You did commentary when you were young. And, you know, so that's kind of one of the first things I wanted to address. My answer to that would be, well, you know, in hindsight, maybe I was a little young to be doing political commentary, you know, when I was 14 or, you know, 16. Like, I go back and listen to the Whitfield, you know, analysis episodes that I did, you know, back when I was in high school, and some of them were, you know, really good. They still hold up as some of my best, and others are like, you know, really cringe because, you know, I was a teenager and I was still developing, and I still am, you know, developing in my 20s. So, you know, I get that. But I think the big difference here is when I started out doing, you know, political commentary, I was just a kid with a microphone, you know, doing like, you know, podcasting and, you know, whatnot. And like I've said before, you know, politics kind of was like something I was, you know, a bit of a nerd with in high school and, you know, whatnot. I also, believe it or not, I never really ever was like propped up, you know, by like any adult conservatives. everything I did, including the Ben Shapiro interview that I did when I was a senior in high school, I went out and did that all on my own. I made that, all of the connections I've made, pretty much made on my own. No one really held my hand or, advised me, like, and told me what to say. The only thing, really, the only people that really kind of, I guess, helped me promote the show was, later on when I was a senior in high school, I joined Jason Veely's, network at the time, Junior Factor Nation. That was after the Ben Shapiro interview, and that was kind of, where I made my bones, so to speak. But by then, I was older. But, like even when I was a teenager, I was, doing this content independently. And, like, who knows? Maybe Greta was doing the content independently, but like I guarantee you that like I was a kid just ranting into a microphone and like doing my thing, and I was mainly just like trying to inform other, teenagers, other millennial teens at the time, on just kind of what was going on and exposing them to an alternative conservative view of the world, and from the Obama left culture at the time. I was kind of the counterculture and the shock jock teenager and whatnot, and I can certainly tell you that looking back, I probably would not have been equipped to do, public speaking or to address like a large assembly, even at like CPAC. It's interesting. I know several of the, millennials who spoke at CPAC like when they were teenagers, and, some of them, like Jonathan Crone, actually, went on to become liberal, others just kind of faded out, so I've just always kind of been a guy doing a show and, independently, and I've done my own thing. Yeah, I started when I was young, but it's way different. I wasn't, necessarily an activist, per se. And, now it's given me greater freedom, I think, too, that I've kind of always been independent because, well, I do talk about politics somewhat still on this show. As you know, recently I've kind of veered away from that, a bit. And I still talk politics. I also talk, pop culture and movies and music and all that good stuff that, I've talked on the podcast for, the last year or so, kind of pivoted in that direction. And so, I don't begrudge Greta herself, like, as a person for getting up there and saying what she, said. It just, if it was genuine, but it just kind of seems to me like she was being used as a propagandist, which is what I have a problem with. David Hogg is blatantly, a propagandist, and, he was using that for, he used his platform with the whole, shooting in his high school to become a political megastar, and so, that's kind of the same thing. He was handled, and it seemed like he and those other kids were kind of catapulted to the top, and, same with Greta. We don't really, see in any of her past work, she just kind of got catapulted to the top. So that I do have a problem with. I don't have a problem with someone, with a young person kind of doing what I did, and like making their own bones, doing something and struggling through it, um, and like rising that way. But a lot of this just seems manufactured, and like I said, I think maybe she does genuinely believe in climate activism, but it just seems like like the type of doomsday, and we need government leaders to act now. It seemed very like Heretic was very totalitarian, right? Kind of the idea that like a uniformal government needs to intervene, and not something really that a teenager would say on their own. And if she is saying that on her own, well then she's got really radical ideas. Um, as far as like what her message was myself, look, here's what I've always said up climate change and whatnot. I definitely believe that we need to take care of the environment and take care of the you know of the land, take care of the stewardship, what have you. But as George Carlin once famously said in one of his specials, the Earth has been around far longer than we have, and it will probably, uh, you know, it will probably exceed our existence, too, to somewhat. So, um, once human civilization collapses, which I don't think is imminent anytime soon. The Earth will still be here or not, but I don't think that changing global warming, or climate change policy will really you know uh, factor that in. And by the same token, I do think that we should try and take care of the environment. I just don't think it's government's job to be as strict as these alarmists would like us to. I certainly think that clean water acts and whatnot certainly have been helpful, but what the left is proposing now in terms of climate change, and it would basically give the government absolute power in the guise of saving the planet. It's a religion to the left, climate change. And like for every uh fundamentalist Christian extremist and out there, and I'm not saying that like all Christian conservatives are fundamental bigots. Obviously I'm not saying that, but like for every one that out there that actually is like a far right like Christian extremist, there is also a liberal and a leftist who's equally as radical about climate change, and climate change and saving the planet is their religion, and neither is good. We need a bit of a balance when it comes to that. So as far as the girl goes, I feel bad for her because it it just seems like she's being used as another propaganda tool, like David Hogg was, and we'll see where this, goes. I think she'll kind of fade off into the distance. The other thing, though, this Trump and Ukraine thing, where to start? That whole thing is a big, clusterfuck, isn't it? Um, and listen, a lot of you guys already know the story of what happened, so I'm not going to recap and too much detail. I really haven't delved into as much as I would like to, just because I've been busy with school and other aspects of my life. Um, but I do know that Trump had a phone call with the president of Ukraine. Allegedly, according to this whistleblower, he asked Ukraine to, dig into Joe Biden's past because there was some illicit stuff there. And, the left and some of the Never Trumper right is saying that there was quid pro quo going on and, whatnot. The left is saying that the transcript is damning and that Trump needs to be impeached. Trump is saying it's it's a witch hunt, and the right is just kind of saying that it's that it's a nothing burger and that nothing happened, that the phone call was copacetic, and at this point, I don't know. I don't know. I will say I watched a little bit of Trump's press conference. And even as someone who generally supports the president, even as someone who did vote for Trump in 2020, as I've always said, he wasn't my first choice, but I was in the anyone but Hillary boat. So, he was the one I voted for. As I've said, I'll give Trump credit where credit is due, and I'll, criticize Trump where I feel he needs to be criticized. His response yesterday, the one that I heard, was admittedly all over the wall. Pardon the pun, all over the place, and I didn't like it. It a lot of, well, this is just a witch hunt. Nothing, what's happened, and this is a witch hunt by the left, and the Dems are horrible. They're ruining this country. Which generally I tend to, agree with the leftist. The politicians and the media and the Antifa are, ruining things. But at the same time, I wasn't there. No one was there. We didn't hear the phone call, and so it kind of seemed like him, by him kind of avoiding the subject and skirting things, and kind of, being like the Trump the troll. It did kind of seem a little suspicious, and I'm not saying that there was anything that happened or anything like that. What I'm saying more of, though, and here's kind of my point in regards to this, right? Either Trump did something wrong or he didn't in regards to this case. But I'll tell you that the Pelosi has said that she's looking into into impeachment proceedings, and I think she's going to pursue that as much as possible. I don't necessarily like that, but it could very well happen, and I don't think it really matters so much if Trump did anything wrong or not. I think if he did something wrong, that's bad, obviously. If he didn't do anything wrong, it's still kind of bad, because the left is going to use this as, an excuse to try and impeach him, and it's not going to look good for 2020 anyway. am I fearful that Trump is going to lose at this point? Um, no, I don't think it's, looking good with this, but I'm not, quite concerned yet. I basically think that the left is going to use this regardless of whether or not it's true, and it's just not going to. It's not going to be pretty, coming up in 2020. It's just not, and so I think that the question that we need to ask isn't so much was this true or not. I think that's kind of sadly irrelevant. The question we need to ask is this going to be politically used? I think the answer is yes. And, if so, how is it going to be politically used, and what is the magnitude of the politicalization and whatnot? Um, and people have been saying on the conservative side that this is going to backfire. Just like the Mueller thing did, I want to say yes. Well, I'd love to say yes that that's going to be the case. I just think that the circumstances are just different enough that this may cause more of a problem for Trump than the Mueller hearings did and whatnot. For one, Mueller kind of came off the heels of the 2016 election, and that was the Clintons, having sour grapes that Hillary, never, that she lost in 2016 and whatnot. So, the more part of those optics were about 2016 and all that. This one, obviously we're heading into another election with 2020. I think things are different now than they were in 2016. Obviously Trump is the incumbent president. We're looking at that. We're looking at Trump. This was, I guess, the biggest problem I had with his speech, with his hearing. I think that Trump yesterday was a little bit too much like Trump, of the campaign. Just he didn't seem very presidential. It would have been great if he were at like a rally or something, or kind of showing people, but it just seemed like he wasn't taking it very seriously, and that does kind of worry me. Not so much that he did anything wrong. I think that Trump is Trump, but I just think that the optics aren't going to be, very good for him. And, I think regardless of how much he screams fake news, fake news, fake news, I do think that this is going to hurt him somewhat. To what end, I don't know. So, on the other hand, I don't think Joe Biden is going to be around for very long, because if Trump is found guilty of something, if he did do anything illicit, real or made up, I think Biden's out too. I think because of this, Joe is kind of going to have to fall on his sword politically. I think Elizabeth Warren, she's moving up there, which like she's just as cringy. I mean, they all are. Like I said, Tulsi is the only candidate up in the Dem running who isn't a major cringe fest. Who although I may disagree with her on a lot, I can actually watch Tulsi, and she doesn't repulse me. But unfortunately, we're not going to get the Dem who talks you know more sensibly to people. We're not going to get that candidate. We're just not. So we're most likely going to be stuck with Elizabeth Warren, maybe Kamala Harris. She's trying to be the female Obama. I don't know if that's going to work for her or not. We could get Bernie. Crazy Uncle Bernie, Larry. The Larry David spinoff, as I call him. Uh, we could get hipster. Beto O'Rourke. Bro, I totally stole your girl, and now I'm going to play guitar like a hipster douchebag in college, and I'm going to pretend I'm super like unaware of the way I attract females, and that we could get him, but you know we're not going to get anyone sensible on the Dem ticket. Comparably, say what you will about Obama, but even when he was when he was campaigning, uh, at least in terms of how he sounded, and this is by no means an endorsement of Obama, but he just at least he tried to conceal some of his radicalism. He didn't seem quite as off the reservation as perhaps some of the left is. It seems like they're far more aggressive now than they were in 2012 and 2008, and maybe part of that is a reaction to the fact that conservatives grew some cojones after Trump's election. That could be part of it. It could just be the Overton window, opening more, and that and the radicals just becoming more and more open to spouting radical crap. But anyway, I don't know, folks. I don't like it. I'm not saying that this election is lost for Trump completely, but it's not going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be a landslide like a lot of conservatives want to believe. I think we're going to have an uphill battle, this go around, and I wouldn't be surprised if we lose. And I know that back in 2016, I said back then that I didn't think that Trump was going to win then, and I know that he did. I realized that was a huge upset. That was somewhat of a miracle, and the climate is such that I just don't think that that's going to happen this go around. I think that was a once in a lifetime thing that we all witnessed, and I mean, I enjoyed the salty, tears like far leftists as much as anyone did, but I don't think we're going to be getting that in 2016. Although if Trump does somehow manage to win again, I think it will be pretty good. But I can almost guarantee that if Trump wins in 2020 somehow, we're not going to win in 2024. It will go back to the Dems. Eventually, the White House will, and it's just not going to be pretty when the left does take back over. So that's all I'm saying. And yeah, I mean, I think that just about does it for the political stuff. And in terms of pop culture, um, that's what I'm going to be covering. More on the on the Saturday show. I know for certain I'm going to be recording a podcast segment here with my friend Matt Dallas, who, as some of you guys know, if you guys are mega Whitfield fans and you go back to my days of the Whitfield analysis, you know that Matt was, a regular on my old show, and he and I are very close, personal friends. And also, as I plugged, last week, my friend Jason and his brother Tate have their podcast On Tap, which is also a pop culture and politics. I might have them on the show this weekend, too, if possible. I'm not sure if the two segments are going to be going on at the same time, but I will be producing some content this weekend regardless. Who knows? I might pre-record both segments and then just stitch them together and then stream that on Saturday night. So I will certainly keep you guys apprised of that. And let's see, what else? Oh yeah, in terms of like what I'm, listening to this week as far as music goes, I've been going, back and listening to, I've been listening to a lot of Eric Clapton's stuff this week. My uncle, may he rest in peace, Gary, was a big Eric Clapton fan, and so I was listening to Slow Hand today, which is one of my, one of my favorite Eric Clapton albums, arguably one of his best, arguably one of the greatest, rock albums of all time. And, as I was heading home from school and before I got back to record this podcast, I was listening to Eric Clapton's tribute album to J.J. Cale, the one that came out a few years ago. And if you guys want a song that is just like absolutely, mind-blowing, go and listen to Eric Clapton's cover of Magnolia with John Mayer on guitar and vocals. I haven't talked about John Mayer too much on this show. I know that people love to hate him, but he honestly is a great guitarist and a great songwriter. He's kind of like Sting, who, as you know, I also love. They're both egotistical, but man, are they, are they talented? You can't deny that. And as far as John Mayer goes on this, cover of Magnolia, he absolutely nailed it to the point where, like, I've played it for, some people. Like my stepdad is a big fan of J.J. Cale, and I think the first time I played the John Mayer and Eric Clapton cover of Magnolia, he said that John Mayer's vocals sounded exactly like JJ's. He thought that maybe like Clapton had just, remastered JJ's vocal track. That was how good it was. And all that jazz. So anyway, the Eric Clapton J.J. Cale tribute album is just fantastic. I couldn't recommend it enough. Also, for those of you who listen to jazz and are jazz fans, as I am, I have two recommendations for you guys. The first would be Art Pepper's new release. Obviously, Art Pepper's dead now. He was a saxophonist in the 50s and 60s who, put out a bunch of great albums. But recently, one of the studios released one of his albums, one of his collections of home recordings, and I'll pull my phone out here so that you guys and read it to you so that you guys know which one I'm talking about. But recently there was a release that was pretty good. So if I can get my phone out of my pocket, okay, there we are. And hang on, gotta enter the. Okay. So the name of the album, for those who are interested, again, this is the Art Pepper album. Promises Kept, the complete artist's house recordings by Art Pepper. Again, that's Promises Kept, the complete artist's house recordings. And then coming out tomorrow is John Coltrane's one of the lost albums that they've recently found in the Coltrane archive, and that album is Blue World. It's coming out tomorrow. Again, that's Blue World by John Coltrane. If you're into saxophone or anything like that, both John Coltrane and Art Pepper are essential to listen to if you like saxophonists like I do. So in the realm of jazz, those are my two recommendations, and I highly recommend the Art Pepper album, and then the Blue World John Coltrane album. I might do a review of that on next week's Thursday podcast once I've had a chance to listen to that. So anyway, folks, at any rate, I want to thank you so very much for listening to the show. Once again, on Saturday, I will be for sure doing a podcast with Matt Dallas. That might be audio only. That might be video too. I'm not sure yet. And then I'm definitely gonna get Jason and Tate and their other co-hosts who host On Tap. They do a fantastic pop culture podcast as well. Again, that's On Tap, and it comes out on Fridays. So anyway, folks, I want to thank you so very much for listening to the Whitfield Report Thursday edition. God bless all of you. God bless the savages. And thank you very much for listening. And please, if you want to support the show financially, please feel free to do so by visiting the donation link in the show description. Other than that, folks, have a good night. Hey there, folks. If you've made it this far to the end of the podcast, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to the show. You are the ones that make it possible for me to make an income from podcasting, and I greatly appreciate that just by listening to our show. You are helping us gain ad revenue. However, if you would really like to help support the show, I encourage you to please donate to the podcast and become a supporter of the show. You can head over to anchor.fm/Whitfield Report and click the support this podcast button and choose the amount that suits you to support the show. Or you can click the link in the show notes and it will directly take you to that page. If you can support the podcast, I really, really appreciate that. Anything that you can do
to help out is greatly appreciated. Even if you can't afford to help financially support the podcast, I encourage you to please go on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, and please leave this podcast a positive 5-star review. That really helps us out here at the Whitfield Report. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next episode.